Awesome.
Yes.
All right. So, hi, I'm Pete Sobanski, AB8WN, and heard through the grapevine a couple people wanted to see some FT8. So this is kind of an introduction to FT8 and kind of how to set it up and kind of get started with it, and kind of some of the fun stuff you can do with it a little bit, and kind of go through that. But first thing I want to talk about is the club is going to get a communication suite called groups.io, which is really an email reflector. But what is it going to do for you, the W0TX club members, right? Groups.io is really a place to collaborate, discuss, and reach other members about ham radio. So you'll be able to go on there, post messages, read messages, kind of do that type of stuff. We can share. You can share interesting things you're doing. Like one of the ideas I've had is I know a couple of people have wanted to get into POTA, and we've talked about that with the DRC Saturday. So it'd be really easy to throw up a post on here and say, "Hey, I'm going to be at this park tomorrow at this time. Anybody wants to show up, feel free." And it's not necessarily a DRC Saturday or anything like that, but we can do stuff like that on there. We can put club announcements on there as well. And it also has an archiving function. So if you want to go back and search something like, I remember we were talking about something or other, you can go search for it. So how does it work? Like I mentioned, it's kind of an email reflector. So you can actually email into to post to it, and you can also receive emails. Now, when I hear that, one of the things I hear is, oh, I'm going to get spammed by 8 billion emails, which personally I don't like. You can configure how many emails you receive. You can receive none. You can receive a batch of them, and I'll show you the settings in just a little bit. But this is really, we wanted to have a way where members could kind of chat and be able to talk on a spot that we're outside of nets and kind of just that asynchronous type of communication. So here's an example. I'm on the LICW, which I signed up for, and then I had health stuff go on, so I haven't been on to any classes. But this is kind of what it looks like on the website. And you can see you just have a listing of topics that you can post to, and someone has posted to at the beginning. You have photos you can share as well. You can do a whole bunch of different stuff with this. So it's really nice for that. We can post, like you can see at the top, we can pin messages from the board or the club if we have interesting stuff going on, so you'll make sure to see it. Here's an example of the settings that you can do for email. So if anybody's worried about getting too many emails, you can actually set up no email. So you only get it when you go to the website. So you can do that only on the website. For example, with the LICW, I have it set where I get a daily summary so I can see what happened in the last 24 hours. You can get digest, which is 12 messages. You can get individuals. So if you want to be really on top of anything anybody says on this site, you can get every message and respond to it in your email. Up to you on how you want to do that. But again, you can, when you sign up for this, you can set up no email and just use the site. So don't worry about getting too many emails from this. So the question is when. We're going through and doing some setup process. We'll be putting information in the next roundtable, some more specific information about how to use it, where to go, that type of stuff. Kind of like when you sign up, we'd like to, for example, have your name and call sign. So when you post on the site, people will be able to see that and know who they're talking to, and do that, and kind of go through that. We're going to get the upgraded version, so we'll be getting that soon. It's there now technically. So if you go on groups.io and search for W0TX, it's there. We don't have anything set up for it, and it is, you'd sign up for it and we'd let you in. So if you were to do that, you'd probably get an email back from me asking you to do a couple things, but we'll put up like general ideas on what we'd like to see on there and stuff like that, just kind of on topic for amateur radio. So, but about mid next month, after the roundtable comes out where there's the information in it, we can actually take our membership list and just send an email. If you want to sign up, you can use that email to sign up on the site and get in there. If you don't, you can just simply trash it. So any questions from anybody on that? It's kind of a very high level of what we're trying to do. And again, we'll have more information coming out, but anybody have any questions on that? Awesome. Well, I look forward to chatting with you on groups.io as well as like here. So I clicked on something. There it is. FT8. Interesting mode of communication. So what I'm going to go over is what is FT8, kind of some cautions with it that you want to watch out for. What do you need for FT8? I'll go through an actual setup. I wiped my settings and I can show you a setup on that to kind of get set up with it, a little bit of what you can do with it. And I'll actually give a live demo at the end of it to show here's how you can do it and what it looks like. So FT8 is short for Frank Taylor Design 8 FSK Modulation. That's a mouthful. It's a frequency shift keying digital mode of radio communication created by Joe Taylor, K1JT, and Steve Frank, K9AN. Now, one of the things I had to do before this presentation is I had an idea of what the transmission was, but frequency shift keying digital means that in your transmission, there are set spots that you're transmitting on in the frequency that are keyed. So, for example, if we were to do it really simple, you could have 14072, 14073, 1407 ... right? And you know that when it's on that frequency, you can get that. So it's keyed off of that. Now, FT8 kind of keys off of your initial type of transmission, so it can key off that because you can be off by frequency a little bit, and so it'll kind of detect that. But that's kind of what it is. Now, the cool thing with this is, with the advances in signal processing and how the transmission works, timing is important, so it knows when things are supposed to be where, as well as all of the signal processing. The software can decode FT8 signals with a signal-to-noise ratio as low as -20 dB in a 2500 hertz bandwidth, which is pretty low. I don't hear CW that well. Not that I'm that great at it anyways, but I don't hear it down to that. So I've made contacts down to, I think, -17. I haven't gone down to -20. That gets a little iffy, especially with my compromised antenna that I've got. But it's really good at punching through the noise and really getting a connection through. Here's the thing with it, though. This is what a full exchange looks like on FT8. So you can see here that K6YES, let me see if my mouse shows up here on this line right here. You can see he's calling CQ. So he's saying CQ, this is who's calling, and this is their grid square. And you can see on the next line, JQ2QHQ is calling K6YES and saying, I'm in grid PM94. K6YES calls back to JQ2 and says, I'm hearing you at +12 dB. K6YES says, Roger, I'm hearing you at +2. K6YES says, I got that, Roger, Roger, 73. And then JQ2 responds with 73. That's the communication. This isn't something that you're going to have a long chat. It's not a CW rag chew. It's really just about making the connection between you and the other person and getting your signal there and back. So this isn't something you're going to want to do if you really love talking to people, you really love sending messages, you're really having that back and forth conversation. This is about just being able to make that connection. So it's fun, it's interesting, and there's a couple interesting things you can do with it too. Like mentioned at the beginning, we have Bill on who got his worked all states on here in a very, very short amount of time because of that. So thank you, Bill, for being an example. I appreciate it. Word of caution. I've heard this a couple different ways, and I'm going to add one more thing onto this now that I think of it. I've heard in various places, FT8 is a full duty cycle transmission. And they caution in a lot of places. Now, I went looking again before this presentation, and some people are like, it's fine. I run 100% power output on mine. Personally, I run at about 50% just because I'd rather keep my radio. And if it does happen to be that. So if you're ever going to do this, try and run at about 50% power so you don't blow out your finals and have all sorts of radio problems. And the other part I'll talk about in the demonstration is how you're transmitting. You can have your ALC go crazy, and then you start just splattering all over everything. So, and I'll show you kind of where that is and what that looks like. So it's also a weak signal. So for example, running 5 watts, you can get actually very, very far with it. So 50 watts is, I've made it quite far on that. So you don't need that much power. So what do you need? You need a computer or computing device. We'll show you the computer today. And computing device, because I know there's some people that do POTA and SOTA and they bring their phone, and there's actually some apps you can get on that and connect it. I've never done it, so I can't tell you how to do it, but it's a digital mode, so you need something to send digital. A radio, which for this demonstration, I'm going to assume go to the website, get the drivers, and install the drivers for your radio on your OS. Otherwise, a lot of times, like the IC7300 and things like that, you'll see, well, it's not working. Did you install drivers? So you can just go to the site for manufacturer Yaesu or wherever and get those. They usually have them right on the support page for the radio. A sound card. Now, most radios have the sound card built in. Like the one I've got, the FT710 here, the IC7300, things like that, have that in there. So you've got that. The cat control we were talking about earlier. The computer needs to be able to talk to the radio, which often is on the same cable, just with the USB, and WSJTX. Now, I'll show you Grid Tracker, which I think is really cool and kind of what it can do for having fun with FT8 as well. So, radio and sound card, as I mentioned, example 7300. Sorry, I was talking ahead of my slides. So, what do these kind of look like? So, really quick, this is kind of what WSJTX looks like. And you can kind of, this is right from their website. You can kind of see you have what signals are coming through. You have your band activity, your receive frequency, and I'll go over kind of a little more on what this means as I'm doing it, and a whole bunch of other stuff that kind of tells you what frequency you're on and all that type of stuff. And then I'll show Grid Tracker in just a second here on what that looks like. So you can track grids and help make the contacts. So let's set up, and I'll show you how to go through a typical setup on this and what that looks like. So assuming that you have installed WSJTX, we can see here when it default comes up, this is what it looks like. Not much is going on. You kind of have timer going through your seconds because FT8 works on 15 seconds, but there's not much else going on. So let's set up my radio. Now, mind you, again, the assumption is I've got my radio, I've got drivers installed, and yours is going to look different. What I would suggest doing is once you get ready to set up your radio, go on YouTube and just search WSJTX and your radio that you've got. Got an IC7300, WSJTX IC7300. There's videos all over the place on that, and they can help you with your specific radio. So for mine, we'll go into settings. And let me bring up my notes here real quick so I make sure I go through all this right. First thing, make sure to set up your call sign and your grid. So for me, I am in DM79 and AB8WN. Don't forget to do this. I did some transmissions earlier and I forgot to do this, and I was some weird call sign. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So don't forget that. The one thing I would set here is this one. Double click on call sets TX enable. And I'll show you why in a little bit. Okay. Mainly to do with Grid Tracker. So when you click call sign in Grid Tracker, you can have it start transmitting. So on the general screen, call sign, grid, double click on call sets TX enable. Now, for radio, this is going to be radio specific. A lot of stuff is going to be set ahead of time, but you can see they have a lot of defaults for various radios. Like that, you got an IC 7300, which seems to be what a lot of people have. There's the IC 7300. They have a preset. I have a little QMX, and it says use this radio. That radio is set here too if I wanted to use that. But for me, I've got an FT710, so I can check that. On my radio, you can set the baud rate. So I have to match the baud rate that's on my radio to what this is transmitting. So I've got 38400. I'm going to use a PTT of CAT. Now, with modern radios, I believe the IC7300, the FT710, and a lot of other ones will be using CAT. So this is basically CAT will send the information to say, hey, key the transmit. Mode, the radio I have has a specific data mode, which increases the bandwidth that it's receiving on and kind of does that for you. And I set that. So for my radio, this is kind of the setting I have. Again, whatever radio you've got, I suggest YouTube search and you should be able to see it. We're going to set one more thing and then we'll come back to these two. So I mentioned sound card. This will be a little different for your radio. I'm on Linux technically, so these might look a little weird for you. But the C media is what the radio presents itself. So the FT710 presents itself as media electronics. And the first one we're doing is input. So there's my input. And then when we're transmitting, we need to have the output. So I will set the output to there. And once that's set, now I can test CAT and it'll contact the radio. And if everything's working, it'll turn green. If it doesn't, so let's do this. Let's show this. So let's say I've got the wrong baud rate and I test CAT. It's going to sit here for a little bit and eventually it's going to pop up an error. It took a second when I tested this a little earlier. So, and you can see Hamlib had a problem, couldn't read from it, couldn't talk to it. So you're like, oh, well, that's weird. And then just kind of go through the settings and make sure you've got the right one and you can test it. Now you're not going to be able to hear it, but the other thing you can do for the PTT is you can hit test PTT and I can hear the relays switching on for transmit, which means that PTT is working. We've got that. And then the other thing that I'll suggest setting is under reporting, accept UDP requests right here. And I would say prompt me to log QSO. So if you don't select this and you make a contact, you're going to have to remember the call sign and write it down. This will actually do it and it'll put it in a log file, which you can find on your computer. So I'm not going to go over how to get it into a logging program. You can have it automatically, but when I did it, it's very involved in terms of setting ports and stuff like that. But it can be done. But we'll set that. So again, prompt me to log QSO and accept UDP request. And hit OK. And then we should start seeing, and let me change this down. So up here, we can start seeing signals come in. I can see on my radio that I've got some bars there, and you can start seeing there's someone talking and there's someone talking. And you'll be able to see that. So in here, you can also set a whole bunch of different stuff, whatever you'd like to set. A lot of time, you can set how fast the waterfall is going with the N average here. You can change palettes, do all sorts of stuff like that. But now you can start seeing, we're starting to see people talking. So you can see people calling CQ. And as I mentioned before, like here, K4QAL is calling N7GLF and saying, I'm in EM50, which is pretty cool. So if we were to take something from here, and let's say, so again, here's the time. normal time. Here's the dB you're hearing them at, right? And if you remember, down to negative 20, but I heard someone at negative 21 here, negative 20. Don't necessarily want to go that far down, but if you wanted to, you can just, by the default, let's do one more thing before I do that. I found out that I can bring my power down to here because my ALC on your radio, you can change it from usually SWR to a couple of different things. One of them is ALC. When you transmit for FT8, make sure that your ALC is basically staying at 0, because if it goes up, you start splattering and widening the bandwidth that you're going across. And then here, this part of it, you have to adjust your input on your Windows settings. This is a little rough. I can't show you that because I'm on Linux here, but you can look up, again, YouTube on setting your input, and just make sure you're not pinging this up to the highest part. So I'm going to set that there, and then I'm going to look over and make sure I'm not off on what I remember. And let's go up here too. You can see this little red bar and green bar. So if we take our transmit here, and let's say we put this at 2500, you'll see that the red, which is our transmit, will show you where we're going to transmit on. So you can kind of see where it's going to go. And then, of course, green is receive. So the band activity is everything that's going on. It's actually decoding all messages across this entire bandwidth here. So here's a conversation, and you get all of that in this one. The receive frequency is only showing you what the green has over it, plus or minus a little bit. As you can see, I'm not perfectly on here, but it's still decoding it. So we can see here that KQ4KSY is trying to call N9LAH, and I'm not hearing N9LAH, and obviously he's not hearing him either because he's repeating the message. So that's okay. So if we see here, let's pick someone that comes up in a second here. Negative 10. I just clicked on it, and I'm transmitting. The radio relays went off. You can see here it enabled TX because I clicked on them, and I'm saying, hey, I'm in DM79, like we saw. The other thing it did is it automatically put me on his frequency, or her frequency. I don't know that. So it put both of those on that frequency. And they didn't hear me. Now, WSJTX will auto-retransmit and try to make contact again. So, for example, if they heard me the first time and I'm sending the second message and propagation changed a little bit and it's not there, it'll try again. And then if I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that, you're not hearing me well enough, I'll just stop. And it looks like suddenly a lot of, oh, he did hear me. So I'll just double click on it again. If you saw that, all I did was he came back to me, and these colors can change, but red means he contacted me. So I just clicked on it again. It enabled TX, and it remembered, based on the last message I got, which one it should be transmitting. Because I showed you before, there's a set of messages that get transmitted. So he heard me at negative 14. I heard him at negative 12. Now, because we selected prompt me to log this, as soon as we got this through, this pops up. This is confirming the QSO, and then we'll log it. Let me bring up text, and I can show what that looks like as well here in 2 seconds. It's in a weird place. So it's going to take a little bit to find it online. You can search for it. I don't remember where it's on Windows. But for example, on Linux, .local in your home folder, share WSJTX. And then when I hit OK to log this, I get a WSJTX log.ADI. And if we look at the ADI file, you can see here, normal ADI file there's the call, there's the grid square, the mode is automatically set, -14 and -12, which we can see here. He told me he heard me at -12. I heard him at -14, and the information is there. So then you can import this into your logging program and do what you would like to from there. So that's kind of how to use it to just make some contacts. And I have a map up here where I can see grid squares on the US, so I could be like, they're right there. So let's do something fun. Let's show you. Oh, Bill, got a question.
I want to make one comment, is that when you confirm the contact, the enable TX button goes blank. So if you want to send the guy a 73 back, you got to remember, as soon as you confirm it, to hit enable TX so they get your response of 73.
By default, that's interesting. If you see that, I'd like to hear that, because mine auto-transmitted it even if I didn't do that. So this line here, I sent 73.
Well, but also, if you want to continue with another contact, you can click on it, and if you don't hit enable TX, nobody hears you.
I think too, with that, the one setting we did, which is to double click on call sets TX enable. If you double click on, if I double click on another person, it'll automatically start transmitting.
Okay, never mind.
So, but that's a good call out, Bill. I like that. So if we didn't have that set, it wouldn't do that. So let's try it. We got time. We're only halfway through this. So if I uncheck this, double click does that. Let's see here. Let's get someone who's got, oh wow, hearing that person really well. -5. I'm clicking on it. Nothing's happening. Which is where the enable TX would start me transmitting. But with the double click sets it, it should start transmitting. So let's bring up Grid Tracker. I like Grid Tracker. When I'm doing FT8, this is primarily what I use. What's interesting about Grid Tracker is, by default, should start reading directly off of WSJTX automatically. And what you'll start seeing here in this window is it'll start populating stuff. So we can see over here that this person's calling CQ, but we also have, I don't know if it's that person or someone else, but we can start seeing the CQs. And depending on what grid square is colored, you start seeing, someone in this grid square is talking to someone in this grid square. So it starts making sense of some of what's going on in here. Also, both of these are free programs. You can just download them. Just search for Grid Tracker. They have a download link and you can get it. You can also see it automatically read from WSJTX that we're on 20 meter. Grabbed information about my call sign and some other stuff about it. So you can start doing that. The one interesting thing, so I'll show you a couple things here that I kind of like about it. One is the call roster. So if you click on this button here, and you can go through, that has a whole bunch of stuff to get, like where the moon is. You can show that on here. You can show all sorts of different stuff, weather patterns, things like that. I typically don't, but a lot of people like a lot of different things. And you can start seeing some information. So we have people calling CQ, and I can sort it. I can sort by call sign. I can say I want to see who's calling CQ, so I can sort by calling. I'm looking for a specific grid. These people don't have it. I want the DXCC entry. And you can configure this as well for what you want to have shown. So if you want, you're like, you know what? I don't care about state. You don't need state. Just right clicking and then putting it on there. I like state. No, I'm not going to be up there. It is. Decibels, kind of this. Sometimes I'll take off the flag depending on how I'm displaying it, but you can see what works for you. Now, here's the important thing. there were a couple settings that we did, and we'll show them again here just to make sure. One was double click on call sets TX. That was important. The other one was under reporting, we have accept UDP requests. So the reason we set those is when I'm in here, let's wait for the next one and I'll see if one's ready to be contacted here. 15 seconds, boop. Let's see here, 1 second, -15. I already tried to contact that person. The age is a little old. So we'll see if someone else comes up. Or we'll just try to talk to someone that's up there. 2 seconds, 3 seconds, Virginia at -13. So I just clicked here, and because we had those settings set, accept UDP and double click starts transmit, as soon as I clicked that, WSJTX started going. And you can see here, I'm calling KG4OJT from DM79. And it also set my transmit and my receive frequency. And we also did not see K4G-OJT respond, so WSJTX is going to try again. I get this a lot, propagation changes, or someone's just like, I've been calling CQ enough, and they drop right as I contact them. I don't know. Maybe people don't like me. So.
You forgot to brush your teeth.
Yes. So that person didn't hear me, or they just got up from the radio. Who knows? But as you noticed, with those two settings, accept the UDP request, which is basically accepting the request means something else can talk to WSJTX, and that double click means basically I'm sending from Grid Tracker to WSJTX, hey, I clicked on this person, in essence. So from here, you can just click on things. You want to talk to somebody, whatever's going on. It's interesting depending on what you've got and who's out there, because I've been making a contact with someone calling CQ, and I've had someone call me after I got done contacting the person who was calling CQ. So it's interesting for that type of stuff. But again, you can sort this, you can do whatever else, but let's see something else really cool here. This little button here called spots. Now we transmitted. There's all the spots that heard me. So you can see here, and you can mouse over. Now these people, like here, you can tell they're not transmitting. They've got their radio set up. They've got Grid Tracker on, and so it's uploading. So N8RY heard me at -6. So I'm running 25 watts right now, and this is where I got to on 20 meters. I love this thing because I can tell how far I'm getting, because I'll see a lot of the times when I've been transmitting, I'll hit Alaska a little bit, and sometimes Europe. I don't know. I don't have a good antenna that's got good takeoff angles. It's a random wire up in a tree, so I'm happy with what I get. But I like that because you can do that. And the last thing to show you on here that I think is pretty neat is they just updated version 2. Let's do one last thing, because sometimes it's fun to do some of this. So what I'm going to do is set up Logbook the World on startup, and I'm not going to say log because I upload my logs manually. But let's put in my information for Logbook the World. There it is. Copy my password, and I typed in a couple characters to make sure it was just going to show dots. And let's do a test download. Passed. And so now if I go on here and click the right button, wherever it is, I need to remember which one it is. Apologize. Let's just close it and bring it back up because it will should do it. Nope, I need to turn it on. Or I have that. Oh, there it is. So now you can see what just popped in. This is kind of cool. What I like about this is if you want to hunt grid squares with FT8 as part of the fun of this to see where you're making contacts, you can hook it up to, for example, a lot of different things. If you saw here in the logging section here, you can set up straight from Grid Tracker, so it'll show you stuff. If you've got club log, QRZ, it can pull some QRZ information, logbook of the world, EQSL, and you can see here that based on startup, where it'll pull that information from. So I've been kind of on 20 meters, hooking up and seeing what I can make contact with. It also does this by band. So for example, if I come over to WSJTX, and let's say I go 17 meter, this will update and say, okay, this might take a second to get it right. It's going to make me a liar now. Oh, band mixed. Let's just go auto. And it should just show that band then. Switch over to 20. Those are the ones I made on 20. Obviously, I haven't done much on 17. Let's try 40. And you can see I'm mostly on 20. But here's the 40 meter contacts that I've made on FT8. So if I wanted to start hunting grid squares with this, I can do that. So that's been kind of fun. Every now and then I'll get on and you can kind of look around and just visually see, like, for example, in this one, in this grid square, I don't have that logged. There's some people transmitting out of there. Looks like KG4OJT, which I think we talked about just a bit ago. This person. So if I can make contact with them, now if I turn my power up to 50, I might be able to get through, type of idea. But you can kind of do that. So it's kind of fun to do that. Plus, it's got some neat features to see where you're getting out to, where you've gotten to, and who you've made contact with. So now, for example, we did make a contact up here. I'll need to take that and do my normal uploading to Logbook of the World for it to get in here. But the other thing is, it kind of knows I started contacting KG4OJT. And if VE is still on, you can see here also in your call roster, as you're hunting, you can see here, I've made contact with DO33 before. I've made contact with EL98 before. It'll start color coding stuff based on what you've made contact with and what you haven't. So in the roster, I can go like this and say, oh, well, they're -10. That looks pretty good. 30 seconds. That's Ohio. Click it. Let's see if I can get that grid square, because I don't have it. And like I said, I just clicked on the call sign because we set up the other things. It automatically starts transmitting. And you can see here too, just like anything else that you're doing, this person here is calling DX. I don't think I'm DX to that person, so wouldn't want to call to that person. Oh, they heard me at -6. So with Grid Tracker and those couple settings, it's very easy to kind of go through here and just, you've got a visual map, you've got this nice thing to be able to click it. I've found this very confusing and really hard to read because it's going so fast and there's so many people. But this makes it a lot easier. And you can see here too, this updated because you can see who this person is talking to. It's me. So you'll show up there because it's reading that. Again, pops up. I contacted that person. Hit OK. And now that person is in. We still have the text file open. Let's open that real quick. And you can see here, there's our first one we did here. And there's the person we just contacted. So later on, I'll take this and I'll upload it to Logbook of the World. And if they upload theirs, that grid square will then go positive for me on the map here and show red, which is pretty neat. So at a very high level, again, I went over a lot and just kind of some of the settings that I think are really nice to have because of this. There's a lot more you can do. Like I mentioned before, there's a way to actually get it to automatically go to your logging program. Most logging programs, I've done it with on Linux. There's a QRQ logger, which I've had it automatically connected to. I've used Logbook Log4OM. And when I was on Windows, I had it automatically connected, so it'd go in there, and then I can just use the menus to upload to Logbook the World. It is in depth. If you go on YouTube, there's some videos for it. You have to set up ports between various things to get all this working. So it's a little involved. So, but other than that, you can look up where the location of your WSJTX file is, import it into your logging program, and then do your normal upload that you would do to whatever. If you use Logbook the World or if you use something else, you can do your normal process there. So that's at a high level, kind of what I had for doing FT8. It's kind of fun doing this. It's kind of neat every now and then seeing something over in Europe and trying to work them. You can see I've made a couple contacts over there that have been confirmed. I like to do POTA. And so you can see, like down here, this person is calling CQ POTA. So people are doing that type of stuff. And you can also check up here, the POTA, and you can see, oh, that's the first time I've ever seen someone call CQ Park. Usually it's POTA. But it also pulls information from the POTA site to say what park they're in. So you can do stuff like that as well. So I hope you liked it. What questions do you have? Anybody got questions for me? I'll see if I can answer them. Jim.
Yeah, thanks. A great presentation. Thank you. Now, I just want to be sure I'm understanding. Now, your transmissions here, those are all automatic?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Now, character limit for the reply, is that always just that 4 characters or?
There is, I don't know off the top of my head what the reply limit is. But, for example, we can say 73 here. Lets it go far, but there is a character limit. I know there is. I'd have to look at the protocol for it, and I'm not sure what that number is, but that's a good point. There is a limit. So if you wanted to say 73 THX or something like that, I believe it has that, but I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head.
Do you ever see any more back and forth than just the contact, the acknowledgement, and the signal report in 73?
I have not. I have not.
And then another question: the drivers for the for FT8 or for my radio, those would be the same drivers that I installed when I installed the RT Systems programming software. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. If you've got control between your computer and your radio, and everything's working through your cable, that's been installed.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Thanks much. Good presentation.
So.
Hey, Pete, under your 73 column, there's a down arrow. Click the down arrow. Boop. You can also have it where it could say 73, thanks. You can set that where you can change it on the fly with the up and the down arrow to instantly change it for somebody else. And then one other thing is when you go to Grid Tracker, underneath the receive button,
yep,
you can see that only the 20 and the 40 meter bands are active at this point with that.
Oh, that's,
so there's where you wouldn't go to 17 meters because there's not much activity there. And then one last caveat, when you make your settings in SJT, copy those screenshots, because when something goes wrong, you have something when it's good that you can go back to your settings and change it back to what something happened. And there's where a lot of the groups IO, depending on the software, say, I can't get something to work. Well, did you copy the settings on all your screens? And if you did, you can instantly change them back, to default, and you're back in service. But good presentation.
Very good tips. Thank you, Kevin. I like that. Actually, I never looked at that, to be honest, because I have most contacts on 40 and 20. I'm just like, oh, those are my contacts, and I just ignored it. So that's cool that it's what's actually happening on the bands. So that's good to know. I learned something. Thank you. And yes, once you have it set up, if you have to change computers or do anything or reinstall the software, having that would be an excellent idea. And Kelly here,
77 bits.
it's 77 bits. So that's an interesting number. So it's short for what you can send. So awesome. Any other questions, comments? One last thing that I have. Let me bring up the presentation here. For those here, we went through questions. I did want to bring up the last thing, DRC Saturday. I've been setting those up. This coming Saturday, we're going to do a kit build. Sort of. I'm making the kits. We're going to do a ground plane antenna, which I'll have pre-set up with the center pin soldered. You can kind of see here that it's soldered. We'll be able to cut those to length, get the ground plane set up on that, and we'll be at the Stanley Lake Library to kind of do the DRC Saturday to put those together. We'll send out an email tomorrow, so you'll be able to see that as well there, and it is up on the website under our event for DRC Saturday. If you want it there. I'll have about 20 kits that can be put together, so would love to see as many people as we can get there. So, and with that, that's everything I had. Give it back to whoever would like it. Daron, I think it's you.
Thank you. Yeah, great presentation. Really do appreciate that. Yeah, great refresher for those that haven't used it for a while or want to get into it. So appreciate that. We have nothing further for this evening. We do appreciate you being able to give us a presentation and kind of extend it out for most of the hour. So, and unless anybody has some questions again for the club or Pete, let us know.
Thank you, Peter. Excellent.
No problem.
Ron, yeah, FPI, go ahead.
Yeah, the two pieces of software you were playing with there, the WSJ and then the grid finder or whatever it was. Where do you obtain those and how do you get those? Are they free or is it something you got to buy?
You do not have to buy. So let me just share out my screen again. So what I would do is just go to Google or your favorite search engine and search for WSJTX. And you can find the homepage for WSJT, it says here. But on there, you have WSJTX, and it'll link to the downloads somewhere in here. So here's, for example, Windows install packages for this. You have it there. And the same thing for Grid Tracker. I just search Grid Tracker, and you can see here, you can get to the page. And again, just under downloads. Both of them are free.
And it looks like they're married very well together. Are they, or did you just drag the Grid Tracker into the right hand of the screen there?
So they're pretty well married, and the reason for that, if you remember under here, you can see here there's a port number, which this IP address is referencing your own computer. But you can see there's the port number here. Grid Tracker has that set up in it. Let me see if I can find it automatically. So it knows right here. It knows that port. So this is set by default on this port, and this automatically starts connecting to that port. So that's why they look like they're really married. It's just by default, that's what they're set on.
Ah, I see.
And I think you had a second part to that question.
No, I think I think that covered it. It was both those bases, and you did a very, very good presentation there, Peter.
No problem. I think I saw another hand come up. At least one. Hey, Bill.
I just wanted to mention that installing those two software packages was relatively easy. And even installing the drivers on my brand new FT710 was pretty easy. So all I needed was Kevin's help to get everything set up so I could actually do it. And it took us an hour and a half before we got the right setting under audio or something like that, but we managed. And then I was off and running.
Thank you. It's a good point. Good point. After Kelly is saying afternoon project. Was there another hand? Greg, I think I saw. Anybody else with a question? Maybe I missaw it. Jim.
Yeah, so on your waterfall display here, where you have the transmit and receive frequency right now, is that like the center point at 14074?
I don't think it's the center point. I believe it's the beginning. So, for example, if we put this at 1000, you can see it set right at that edge.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So that's 14.074 right at that point.
14.075, I think. I can't remember exactly how the math works. So at 0 is your default, which is 14.074. Okay. And I think this is off by that many hertz. So, but yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. No problem. Michael, you have a question. Uh-oh, I can't hear you.
Thank you. I realize you're running Linux, so you don't need antivirus. But for those of us that are still running Windows and just converted to Windows 11, reluctantly, do you think you're going to have any problems with things like malware bytes or antivirus programs blocking all this port-to-port communication?
I have not. We use Norton for all the Windows PCs here, and I haven't done a setup on there. I know a lot of the times it'll be like, hey, you're trying to use a port or something like that, and it'll pop up, and you have to say, yeah, go ahead and use it. And I have seen sometimes where people have an issue, but there are posts out there where you can do that and say, yeah, it's allowed.
Okay, thank
you.
I think Norton.
Okay.
Malware bytes, but we'll see.
Michael, you've just endangered my laptop.
By doing what?
Because now
I have the Windows laptop with Norton at our house, so he's going to steal that one afternoon and come down here and set it up on FT8.
So I can answer that question next time.
Yeah.
Because I don't have an answer right now, but I do have a Windows. She has a Windows laptop that I can test it on.
Peter, do you use antivirus on your Linux system?
I don't. I think some of them are a good idea to do that type of stuff. I just haven't really looked it up, and I lock it down pretty tight in terms of what's going on, and very careful on what I'm putting on it. So, Bill.
Okay. I've had a little difficulty trying to get WSJT to work on my Linux machine. And it seemed like it wants to find some libraries associated with Fortran.
Fortran?
Yeah. Does it help to have G-Fortran installed first?
So typically, the way I do it, personally, I use Ubuntu, and so I can.
Yeah, that's what I use.
All I do is sudo apt install WSJTX. That's all I did.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll give that a try, and if I have troubles, I'll give you a holler.
Yep, because the apt on Ubuntu should take care of any dependencies that are required for it. So it could be that there were some, but it automatically installed them and popped right up. So, so I wouldn't if you're on Ubuntu, I just do that. I'd use the apt sudo apt install WSJTX, or I like using my command lines, but sometimes the application you can get stuff from here. So you can see here it's installed from here, so you can use your App Center on there as well, and it should take care of any dependencies for it as well.
Okay, thanks. I'm trying to get away from Windows and go to Linux. But,
that's what I did. So
unfortunately, Windows 11 is out there kind of saying, "Hey, we want you to come and join us," and it's like, no.
Well, either way, it's a change though. So either changing to Linux or changing to Windows 11.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Good questions. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. It's really cool to hear the extra questions. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all. Appreciate being able to share with you. And if anybody else, I'd just like to say I just had something interesting that people wanted to hear about, or something interesting. So if you had a presentation idea you wanted to do too, please let us know. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't necessarily need a 60-minute presentation. If you have something 15, 20 minutes, that's just fine as well. We can maybe do 2 of those a night or something. But yeah, never feel the need that it needs to be 60 minutes. So if you have something, please share it with the class, so to say.
Because I would love to hear it.
Yes. Absolutely.
I talked to the people down at the Deep Space Exploration Society and went down to their open house and talked to the guy down there that will do presentations on their system, and also it's a very extensive ham portion of their presentation. So would people be interested in a presentation from them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I would. And Kelly would.
I don't know if anybody's seen in QST back in the April issue the picture they had on the cover. That's one of their antennas. In fact, that's an antenna that they're putting back up right now. And the antenna that they originally had is a 60-foot dish. And you don't realize how big a 60-foot dish is till you walk up to it and you go, "Oh my!"
I think I'd really love to hear from him too, because that 60-foot dish, I don't remember what the gain on that is, but it was a very, very large number.
Well, they're also going to set up an antenna array for moon bounce on shut these guys up. They want to do moon bounce on 6 meters. And when I was down there, they were doing moon bounce because I had a lot of kids out there, high school age and college age kids, and they were actually doing moon bounce. And the dish was aimed right down to the horizon because the moon had just barely risen. And it was a very interesting setup there. I mean, it's the big problem with a 60-foot dish is the beam width is like, one razor edge. So the difference between hitting the moon and ricocheting off of a star somewhere is very small increments. In fact, you're sitting there listening to the dish motors run, the azimuth and elevation rotors, and I mean they were just, all you heard was a little blip. Now this here is the one that they're putting up now. I think they also had a picture in there of the 60-footer. This thing right now is a pile of pieces in the pile of pieces in alongside of the place. they're also looking for people that want to help with the actual installation. So I'm helping them with some stuff with a rotator that I happen to have laying around in the yard that is big enough to work as the azimuth rotator for this thing. And all in all, it's a very good group to get involved with. So if anybody's interested, I'll see if I can get it set up for our next meeting. Yep, there's the 60-footer right there. And I've got some pictures when I was down there, and they've got cars parked down at the base of it with people standing alongside the cars, and they look like ants. So what I'm going to do is help them with, if you look at that building, we're putting up 2 towers, one on each end of the building, Roan 45. And there's, we're going to put up 2 50-foot Roan 45 self-supportings there for ham equipment. They also have an underground bunker. Their current ham station, just regular ham, is an underground bunker that reminisces of the 50s and 60s. This was an old military dish. It was really, the whole thing was really interesting to me to go down there. I was drooling at all the stuff they had there. There are several other towers in the area, but anyhow, I'll see if I can get the guy. What's his name? I've got it here. A very unique name, Bill Miller. And he's the vice president of the society. And anybody that's been to the Ham Fest, the last couple of Ham Fests, they've had a display up there, 3 or 4 tables and all the stuff up there. So you've had a chance probably to at least glance at them on the way by. So I will see if I can make arrangements with him for the next meeting. Wow, we'll actually have presentations set up a month in advance.
That'd be great. Thank you. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Anyone else? Well, thanks again, Pete. Really do appreciate that. And if anybody wants to go back, again, youtube.com/Denver Radio Club, and you can rewatch that presentation if you'd like. So, all right. Well, appreciate everyone joining us here, and we'll talk to you all soon.
73, everybody.
73.
73.